a ton of technical problems just before we got we tried to get on the air. I apologize about this. I don't know what's going on, but we were freezing. I had to reboot my computer, the whole bit. Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host Alan Ulrich here with my partner Bob Rose. How are you doing tonight, Bob? How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. I mean, I personally limped my way through it. But my mom, dad came over, oldest daughter came over. It was a nice day. We finished putting up our Christmas decorations the night before, so I don't have to worry about that in the subsequent weeks. And now as we sit here tonight, I'm sitting here up here in Western Pennsylvania weather. It is a 14-degree wind chill and a 20-degree real temperature. So I suppose Christmas is here. Happy belated Thanksgiving to you and your family, my friend.
Thank you so much. We had a kind of a misty rain, um, not cold, but cool and damp Thanksgiving. I put my stuff up the day after Christmas, so I did that. And I watched that Auburn, Alabama game. Did you
Ooh,
watch that game?
I did. I did. That entire day of football was exciting, but and I couldn't believe the end, the way that unfolded at the end. But I'm one this time of year. If I don't have a rooting interest in a specific college team, and my college team suck,
Especially,
uh, go ahead.
did Bob? Did you lose me? Did I lose you? We
Okay, I
both
can
kind
hear
of
you now.
froze
Yeah,
for a minute.
I can hear you now.
Okay, good, good, good. All right. Yeah. He was saying this time of the year. You were saying this time of the year about college football
Oh yeah, I root for
that you
chaos.
really
I
enjoy
wanted to
this
see
time of the
Alabama
year. Like,
lose. Yeah, I wanted to see Alabama lose. I wanted to see Florida State lose. Wanted to see Oregon lose. Or not Oregon, Washington. It looked like all those things were going to happen, and then all three of those teams came back in the final minutes. But it was at least an exciting college football day.
yeah, yeah, I couldn't believe what really made that Alabama ending as dramatic as it was, is all the things that went wrong
Yeah,
leading up to that. You get first and goal, the ball gets snapped back, you go lose 18 yards. He crosses the line of scrimmage and tries to sneak back, throws a forward pass, a penalty. I mean, just how many things go wrong when you get that last play, and it changed the entire outcome of the game. I mean, the crowd is cheering. They got the cameras out on their phones, and they're gonna, we're gonna storm this field because we beat Alabama. And we're having a bad season, and just to see the silence.
yeah.
And one of my best friends went to Auburn, so I can't talk too much shit. But yeah, just the utter silence, the disbelief among everybody. Like, we just lost this game in literally the last seconds on a fourth and what forever, and that happened, and it was just amazing. It really was. And I wanted to start with that stuff because we have to do the post mortem on this game, and this game was the exact opposite of what we saw in college football as far as exciting two teams, trying to win. This game was more like two teams trying not to lose.
hmm
Um, I've never seen a comedy of errors quite like what we saw on Sunday. Um, 5 trips to the red zone, and none of them resulted in touchdowns. And it wasn't like you could say, okay, Carr throws a pick six. That's on him. That's his screw up. It was like they took turns. A.T. Perry runs the wrong route, and instead of going to the corner, which is going to be wide open, he curls up and stops. And then he taps his chest. Oh, my bad. Well, your bad was on third down. Then on another trip, William Ramczyk loses his shoe, has to go to the sideline to get his shoe put back on. Landon Young comes in and totally matadors whoever rushes him, head down. I mean, it was like Marcus Williams, head down. The guy blows right past him, sacks Carr again on third down. And then Taysom Hill, everybody's like, just run Taysom when you get in the red zone. Just run Taysom and we'll be fine. He hasn't fumbled in 3 years. He goes from the 19 to the 10-yard line. This is the third straight running play, and they're getting big yardage each time. He fumbles the ball.
Yep.
And the Falcons not only recover it, but go right down the field and score. It's like everyone did everything wrong.
Yep.
The entire game was nothing but screw-ups, one screw-up after another by somebody. And if they weren't screwing up, somebody was getting hurt.
Yep.
I mean, they had a log jam in the injury tent. I mean, just it was surreal. It just after a while, I'm just like, whatever. I couldn't believe it. You couldn't draw up a worse game as a Saints fan than what you saw that Sunday. Because the Falcons aren't any good. You can see that. They could not throw a pass to save their life. They really couldn't. I think he had, going into the fourth quarter, I think Ritter had 88 yards passing total and two interceptions. It just, if you score on at least two touchdowns on at least two of those red zone trips, this is a blowout win. Because then the Falcons can't run the ball. It just, I kept shaking my head. How did you see it? I mean, I kind of went over a lot of it. I mean, what did you see that really shocked you or stood out to you?
The lack of desire on the part of the New Orleans Saints. As I wrote about in my post-game article, which I typically release the day after the game, I wrote that the Falcons were more physical on both sides of the ball. The Falcons were slightly more crisp, and that's more of an indictment on New Orleans than it was Atlanta's high level of play. The Falcons outcoached the Saints on both sides of the football, and the Falcons looked like the team that wanted to be there. The Saints did not, and that's what absolutely appalled me. It's one thing to occasionally come out flat. The best teams do it from time to time, but New Orleans came out flat again against a divisional rival, again against an inferior team, again coming out of a bye week in an important game. This was a crucial game because a victory here would have given New Orleans a much needed cushion in the NFC South, something that no team has had in this division, dating back to when the Saints won it in 2020. And for a team that it loves to win one, lose two, win one, lose two, a cushion in this division was badly needed. But apparently the Saints didn't give a shit about that. That's what stood out to me. In my opinion, this game was a microcosm of the Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael 28 game era. It checked off every dysfunctional box that fans, have complained about this team. Offensive ineptitude, especially in the red zone, run defense getting blown off of the ball, special teams errors at crucial times, penalties at crucial times, wrong routes, bad play calling, bad blocking. Like I said, it just checked off the whole box.
I wanted to make this show about a lot of the deeper problems on this team outside of Dennis Allen and Derek Carr. I know those are easy targets, and everyone's been ripping on them they've been ripping on them for 2 weeks, and Sunday's game just added more fuel to the fire. But in my mind, there's a bit of a delusion among Saints fans that if we just get rid of those two guys, we'll be all right. We'll be a much better team. I don't see that, because one of the things that shocked me was how the Saints defense just got physically manhandled out there. They suddenly looked very old. Cameron Jordan and Demario Davis specifically, but even Tyrann Mathieu, who got 2 interceptions, they looked old. They looked slow. And we've seen this throughout the season as the season has worn on, that attacking 9-10 helmets to the ball defense, we just weren't seeing that. We saw it in spurts. There were moments in the game, especially when they tried running up the middle and off tackle, where everybody, flew to the ball, made the tackle, brought guys down. But I thought when Cordell Patterson came out there and he was running through the team and dancing and stuff like that, that was the kind of energy that was missing from this team. And I don't think Dennis Allen is the reason why that energy was missing from this team. I think you've got a lot of guys out there who winning's not that important to him right now.
No.
Going through the game and collecting the paycheck is more important. And when you get to that point, I think that's when you have to start getting rid of guys, because guys that are just going to go out there and go through the motions, that's a problem. And that speaks to an absence of leadership in the locker room. It does speak to an absence of leadership from the head coach too. But I've seen Sean Payton teams with play like that too. And Sean Payton made dramatic changes the following year when guys started going through the motions like this. And I think that's what Kamara is frustrated about, because guys get up there and talk and they nod and they say, yeah, you're right. We got to do this. We got to play more. We got to play more focused. We got to look more prepared. Then they get out there. Marcus May is having a terrible year, for example. I saw Marcus May do do the little circle, like he doesn't know where the ball carrier is going, and taking terrible angles. And this guy's not dialed into this game. A.T. Perry, not dialed into this game. Your number's called in this play. You should know what you need to do, and you don't do it. I mean, that's your touchdown. He's calling you. This is going to be a touchdown to you. This is the play they've been working on in practice. And this play is going to get called in the game, and you run the wrong route. You're not dialed in. You're mentally not into this game. And I think that leads to what you're saying. They don't give a shit. They're just here. I'm here to collect a paycheck.
100%. And we've seen it building up, in my opinion. We've talked about it on your show. Brandon and I have talked about it on our shows. I know that everybody wants to come down on Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, Derek Carr, and I get it. And all of them deserve a huge part of this, part of the wrath. But you got to look elsewhere too. You gotta look at these guys that do look like they're dialed in. I'm not going to accuse anybody of quitting on the coach yet. Um, but it certainly doesn't look to me like this is a football team, generally speaking, that is willing to sacrifice whatever they need to sacrifice, to make the extra play, that means the difference between winning and losing. That's not this team anymore, and it's quite clear to me. And I haven't just seen it this week. I have seen it multiple weeks this year. Now it's an alarmingly increasing amount of players. To the point where I felt it was most of the team on Sunday. Yeah, you still have your Camaros, you still have your Taysom Hills. I love the effort and passion that Malcolm Roach is playing with right now. You still see that effort and passion from Paulson Adebo, but those guys are exceptions rather than the rules. Meanwhile, you have your vocal leaders who have also always been your leaders by example. Cam Jordan, he's not an everyday player, every down player anymore. You got to use him. Cam can still be very effective, but it's got to be in situational roles or in a reduced role. Demario Davis, he needs a quality running mate at linebacker, and Pete Werner ain't it. I know that people love Pete Werner. Pete has a great head for the game, but you put that man in space and he gets victimized time and time and time again. And opponents know that now. They started to realize it towards the end of last season and all year long this year. If Pete Werner's in the box, he's making a play. You get Pete Werner in space, you're going to see number 20, trailing on every single highlight reel. Go back and watch him, folks. I ain't wrong. And that's just those are physical limitations. Tyrann Mathieu, you no longer want 32 in man coverage. You just don't. He's lost too much. So you need to change the role. The type of role that he is doing for your defense. It's those kind of things. Now, again, those are physical mistakes. The mental mistakes, the ones that A.T. Perry is making, the ones that Landon Young is making, and I know that was that's physical as well as mental. But if Landon Young is mentally into this game, he doesn't get beat that badly. Cesar Ruiz has all the physical talent in the world. When he's not mentally dialed in, he's a 320-pound turnstile. And I can say the same thing about Eric McCoy. It's guys like that. Jawan Johnson dropped 3 balls against Atlanta, maybe 4, but I counted 3 against Atlanta. 3 catchable balls. We've seen Chris Olave drop catchable balls or not make easy plays for someone of his skill level earlier this year. So again, it's almost everybody on this team, and it's ridiculous. And I'll echo your sentiments. It's gotten embarrassing, to be a fan or media coverage of this football team.
Well, I get it. Lim Bowden is not a big receiver for you. He's not an important receiver, but you know what? When guys start getting hurt and he had to step up his play, I'll give him credit. He ran back out there after he got a little ding. He ran back out there, but he had a pass he was wide open, hit him in the hands and on the 5, and he dropped it.
Yeah.
And that was a critical, that could have been a first down. It was deep enough. I mean, when Carr was in rhythm and Carr was getting great protection until he got to the red zone, he is nailing receivers. Boom, wide open guys. Chris Olave, I have to give him credit because I've been on his ass all season for not being a full effort guy. He stepped up, made some big time catches. Atlanta's secondary is garbage. You could throw against them all day long. I had no problem with the game plan. But when they get in the red zone, I get it. The field gets compressed. The receivers can't get the separation they want. This is when the running game should matter, and the offensive line cannot create holes for the running game. You have to make the holes on your own, and that's why Taysom Hill's been the only guy who's been effective in the red zone. But When guys started getting hurt, then you have to start relying on the second guys. That's when Juwan Johnson's dropping passes he shouldn't be dropping. Lynn Bowden's dropping passes. Keith Kirkwood dropped a catchable pass. I mean, it gets to the point where it's like it shouldn't be this big of a drop between these guys and then your next group, but it
Yeah.
is. It's astronomical, you know. Um, Shaheed did not have a good day. Now Shaheed got dinged up. I get it,
Hmm.
but there was one play in that first drive where again Derek Carr is dialed in, and please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying Derek Carr is having a great game, but when he was there and focused and felt confident in his protection, he's putting the ball where it needs to go. He hits Shaheed in the hands on a low ball because Shaheed can put his body between him and the defender, so only he can catch this pass, and Shaheed drops it. He catches that, they're on the 1 inch line. That's a
Hmm.
touchdown next play. That's a Taysom touchdown. That's a Kamara touchdown. And he drops that. You cannot drop these passes. You have to make these catches. I get it. They're difficult. I get it. Carr's not Drew Brees. He's not this man out here doing this, but he is still putting the ball where you can catch it. People ragging on Carr for the Shaheed pass where Shaheed's coming across the middle, and if he hits him in stride, he probably takes it all the way into the red zone, if not inside the 10. There's two things going on in this thing in this play. Shaheed rounds off his break and he's too fast. He's running too fast to his landmark. Think about the West Coast offense. You're throwing the spots. Carr's
Hmm.
job is to throw the ball at the hash marks. That's where he threw the ball, the hash marks. He's not even looking at Shaheed. It looks like he is from the back, but the reason why he got picked off in the end zone because he stared down Shaheed that time. But when Shaheed's running across the middle, he's looking deep and he throws to a spot, and Shaheed overruns it because he hits that spot early. It's a
Hmm.
timing rhythm. If you look at it, Carr's dropping back on that fourth step. He's playing that back foot in the ground. He's throwing it. I know this route. I know it very well. You hit them in the hash and they're going. Kamara runs that route 10,000 times. Every time the ball is right there, he's catching it and running. Shaheed overruns it. He has to twist, catch it behind him. He doesn't get his footing. He stumbles. The play only goes for 3 yards or 4 yards. It's a shallow cross. That's the kind of mistakes that are beyond Carr and Allen and Carmichael. It's those little execution things that when you have guys like, we'll go back to this team, the 2011 team, when you have guys like Darren Sproles, Pierre Thomas, Marcus Colston, they're running that play perfectly every
Hmm.
single time because it was drilled in their head. You've got to run this and hit these marks at this time. Not too early, not too late, right now. And that's when you see Peyton talking about not getting to your landmarks or getting to your landmarks too
Hmm.
soon. It throws off the rhythm of the offense. It's little things, the spacing issues from earlier where you have two receivers in the same, really close together.
Yep.
Yeah, they're supposed to run routes next to each other, one shallow, one deep, but they shouldn't be that close together. They should be a lot further apart. Details. The team is not dialed in.
Yep.
Okay, so John Butler's asking, is Jimmy Graham really worse than this backup squad? No, I don't
No.
believe he is. I think what happens is Jimmy Graham doesn't offer you anything more than what you get from Juwan Johnson. He
Hmm.
doesn't give you a better blocker. He doesn't give you a better receiver than at his point in his career than Juwan Johnson. So you have to activate one or the other. When Juwan was hurt, Jimmy Graham was playing. Now Juwan's back, Jimmy Graham's inactive. They want other guys. You only have so many bodies, and your
Yeah.
offensive line's in shambles. You need all the bodies you can get from max protection. That's why Graham's inactive. But I mean, do you think you'll see Graham this week?
Truthfully, yeah. But I was surprised we didn't see him last week because coming into the game, we already knew that Michael Thomas was going to be out. So I thought for sure that they would activate Jimmy Graham to at least give the offense another big body target in the middle of the field and through the intermediate zones. So when the inactives were announced and Jimmy Graham's name was among them, that did surprise me. Now you still have Thomas out. You have to figure Olave is going to be 50-50 bet to play because that's just the way concussion protocols are. I know people are saying Rashid Shaheed is day to day, but you're talking about a speed guy who hurt a quad. Rashid Shaheed is not going to play this weekend. So, just the sheer matter of bodies. Marquez Callaway, I fully expect to be activated from the practice squad, and I believe that they'll activate Jimmy Graham, put a uniform for Jimmy Graham, too, against Detroit. Because at this point, not that I expect them to be anywhere, even within 3 scores of the Detroit Lions. But at this point, it's all hands on deck. If this team has any delusional hope of winning the NFC South, you have to be all hands on deck. And your top three of your top 4 pass catchers are out. And there's only so much that you can ask of Alvin Kamara. So I think that we'll see Jimmy Graham, but to your point, when Juwan Johnson was hurt earlier this year and Jimmy did have a helmet, they still didn't use him.
No.
They still didn't use him at all. And I've told people, I'm like, look, there's nothing wrong with Jimmy Graham. He's just a 37-year-old guy without a place on this team right now, other than a complimentary role that he's not needed for at this point. Well, now you need Jimmy Graham. Now you need everybody that's left. That can walk a straight line and catch an occasional pass. So I do expect Jimmy Graham to get a hat this weekend.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I mean, you're probably going to go into this game with Callaway, Kirkwood, A.T. Perry, and Bowden as your top 4 receivers. Maybe Olave, hopefully Olave, but he's not going to practice this week. I actually thought he got the wind knocked out of him when he went up for that ball.
Yeah.
And it's a good bad thing. I was critical of Olave for not going after those passes early this season. He probably just watches that sail over his head and doesn't even try it. And he did try it this time. And of course, he gets hurt. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. And yeah, it was a bad pass. Carr should have thrown it more to the inside, but it's one of those things. Here's my thing with Carr. There's a couple things with him. I know he's limited. I know he's got his problems. I don't think the Saints offense does him any favors setting him up for success either. But I do think that you see a lot of these problems he has with being accurate and on time with his throws comes from not having an entire off season, working with these guys and learning them well enough to put the ball where it needs to be. I think that's something that's going to come with time. But a lot, it's so bad right now that everybody just wants to get rid of anybody that has anything to do with this offense anymore.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you. I'll be pissed off if they draft a quarterback because quarterback is not the number one need this team has. Left tackle, defensive end, linebacker, those are far, far, far more important. And you only have 2 picks. You only have your first round pick and your second round pick. I know you're supposed to get compensatory picks in the third or fourth round, but I'm not counting on that. But you have
No.
no third round pick. That's Philadelphia's got that from the trade for Olave and Penning, and you don't have a fourth round pick because Denver's got that for for Peyton. So you're not picking again to the fifth round. I don't want a left tackle from the fifth round. I don't want a linebacker from the fifth round. I've seen those guys. That's running backs, additional receivers, tight ends, something like that. Defensive backs, maybe a safety later in those rounds. But right now, your top two picks, and we're picking 12th right now, if the season ended today. I need a defensive end that's a game changer that teams have to deal with. I hate it's only because I saw him this Thursday. But you look at a guy for Dallas, number 11. The Saints need a defensive end who's a havoc maker like number 11, Micah Parsons. You need somebody to go and do that. The quarterback's a sexy pick. The quarterback is the guy that you're going, okay, yeah, there's our quarterback for the future. And when Carr starts the season, his first incompletion or his first whatever is going to be like, when do we play Jalen Daniels, Derek May, whoever it is that they draft? When is that guy going to start? Time to put him in. We've seen enough of Carr. Put this guy in. And the risk you run with this offensive line is you risk turning him into Young more so than C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that we're getting a C.J. Stroud. We're probably getting a Young, or we're getting somebody worse because his offensive line is that bad. So, I'm sorry. I went on a rant like that, but Bob, you raised your eyebrow when I said no quarterback. Is there a quarterback that you think you want this year at 12?
Alan, I haven't looked at many of them close enough. Obviously I've seen a lot of Caleb Williams because if you watch college football, you get force-fed Caleb Williams. The other guys I've seen, typical college quarterbacks. You either see mechanical issues, or a guy that hasn't run a collegiate system even close to what he's going to see in the NFL. So there's a wide learning curve there. The reason I raised an eyebrow, though, is because Saints fans, you're not stuck with Derek Carr for the entirety 4 years of his contract. But the reality is this: you are stuck with Derek Carr financially for at least 2 years. After next year, the team can release him, without being absolutely crippled in their salary cap. Now, having said that, and I mentioned this on Jordy Hultberg's show today, having said that, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you have to start Derek Carr. And I'm looking at it like this: if you bring in a new coach this offseason, and I know that this is a conversation that we're going to have all offseason, if you bring in a new coach this offseason, don't you think that coach, don't you, Alan, think that coach has a right to choose his quarterback? And if so, if he doesn't believe that Derek Carr is his man, then I think you have to draft a quarterback with your first round draft choice. But if you're sitting there at 12, you're probably going to have to move up and give up more future picks. So you're in that mess again. I don't disagree with you. I think, offensive tackle and defensive end, along with linebacker, are major needs, every bit as much, if not more so, than the quarterback position. But a lot of us have crucified the Saints for not preparing for life after Drew Brees. And now they're in this quarterback mess where they're bringing in retreads, a Jameis Winston, and Andy Dalton, a Derek Carr, and none of them are the answers. And it's unlikely that they're going to find another retread, answer this offseason. So I'm not necessarily poo-pooing your thinking about not drafting a quarterback. I am just thinking from a potential if you bring in a new coach, I think you have to bring in a new quarterback as well. And just figure out the offensive line, figure out the other positions, the best you can from there.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I agree with that. I look, in my mind, I'm thinking that a quarterback is a wasted pick. But if you're at this point, only because you have other needs, and I don't want a pinata back there whose confidence is destroyed.
Sure.
But um, I'm also looking at a team that if the Saints decide they're going to make a coaching change, and we have a long time before this happens because the Saints don't fire coaches midway through the season, especially when they still have a realistic chance. I'm putting that in quotation marks, but a
Right.
realistic chance of making the playoffs or winning the division. They're not going to make that change. They're going to wait till the season's over with and make their evaluations and decide if they're going to fire somebody from there. And yeah, they can, but here's the reason why I think they are hesitant to pull that trigger. We may be looking at a dozen teams looking at new head coaches this year. Part of the reason why this schedule is so easy is because these teams that we're playing are as bad as the Saints. All it's going to take is one or two plays. I mean, yesterday we had a 12-10 ball game. The Bears won that game with nothing but field goals and not a single pass pushed down the field. Every pass was to the sideline. And they won that game 12-10. The Bears have 2 first-round picks. They've got Carolina's and they got their own. I think it's highly likely that they go get a new quarterback again. You watch that garbage that was on Friday between the Dolphins and the Jets. And the Jets are going to fire their coach. They're going to get a new quarterback because they need a new quarterback too. The Falcons don't have a quarterback. That's terrible. That guy is horrible. The Bucks, they're not sticking with Baker Mayfield. They know. The only thing that's surprising is probably maybe the Bucks might keep their head coach another year. I thought he was going to get fired by now. Here's the Panthers. They fired their coach after 11 games, and they're talking about making a mistake with Young, picking Young. Nobody wants to take the credit for selecting him. They're all like, "Oh yeah, we talked about C.J. Stroud." It's like, MFer, you traded up to get the first overall pick so you could pick whoever the hell you want. What is this? You worried that someone's going to take somebody else? I mean, so you got that team. The Raiders are going to be looking for a new coach. The Giants may fire their coach. I don't know. He may pull this out. The Commanders, Redskins, they're going to fire their coach.
Yep.
They've already fired a defensive coordinator. They're going to fire their coach. You start going down this list and look at these teams. New England, Bill Belichick may retire, or he may not be. He may be asked to leave. So you're looking at maybe anywhere from 8 to a dozen job vacancies.
Yep.
I want you to look at the assistant coaches that are available out there. Who are the coaches everyone's talking about as possibly being a head coach? The Lions offensive coordinator, the Dolphins offensive coordinator, maybe the 49ers offensive coordinator. Okay, that's 3. Who else? Who else is out there? You start running out of names. Well, then who are you going to go from the college ranks? Jim Harbaugh. He's had pro experience, but you're not going to get Nick Saban. You're not getting Kirby Smart out of Georgia. So, and then look at the what's happened to college coaches have gone to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more of them have failed than were successful.
Failed miserably.
Yeah. So, Anna, I get it. I know everyone's fed up with him, but the Saints may be looking at us going, holy shit, we're competing with 10 other teams for our head coach. How do we know we're not going to be getting somebody who's just like Dennis Allen? It's just a new name, but somebody Dennis Allen or worse. So, and firing Dennis Allen early doesn't guarantee you're going to get a better coach,
right?
Because you're ahead of the pack. It's not how it works. You can't even talk to a coordinator. Like if you went Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, the Dolphins going to the playoffs. So you can't even talk to him until the Dolphins give you permission. And that permission, depending on how far the Dolphins go, may not be until the AFC Championship game, if they make it that far. That's late January. You know, the league year starts in March. So I'm not trying to poo-poo on everybody's parade, but these are the realistic things that you kind of have to balance out. Where's this coach going to come from? I mean, Harbaugh, you could probably get him from Michigan after the playoffs, the college playoffs, because they beat Ohio State. And that's January. That's early January. No, I'm sorry. It's January because he's probably going to be a New Year's Day bowl. So I mean, it's just that's going to be factored into a lot of the decision making. And it's the people just want the change. They don't care. They just want the change. I mean,
and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are talking about. Well, the Saints need to make a move at head coach or offensive coordinator or quarterback right now to save their season. You're 11 games into the season. There isn't a soul out there at any of those three spots that are going to quote unquote save your season. You're either stuck with what you got now, or stuck with the guys behind them on your roster, be it coaching roster or playing roster. That's just it. This is the hand of cards that you have been dealt with for the remainder of the 2023-24 season. Like it or not, you could throw in, you could throw away Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, Derek Carr, but you're not going to get anything out of that deck that's any better than what you have for the remainder of this season. So I think it's time for a change too. I've made no secret of that. Definitely a head coach, most definitely an offensive coordinator, and probably a quarterback. But again, it doesn't make any sense to me to do it right now because you're not going to change anything. The result of this season is going to be what you see in front of you, for better or for worse.
And if anything, it gets worse. I mean, I know that Antonio Daniels has got the Raiders playing a much better game. I see that, but you're not getting the Panthers aren't going to become a better team. They're not going to get any better now. Frank Reich's gone. I mean, they know those players look at their record at 1-10, and they go, our season's been over with. I'm just here to collect a paycheck. That going through the motion stuff, that's what that team is doing. They're going through the motions. When you play them, and I had a feeling this was going to happen, but when you play them, now it's a divisional game, maybe you get more life out of them, but when you get to around Christmas time and you go to play them, it doesn't take much to bury them, because they know it's over with. They got their bags packed. The only thing that's going to keep them around is if you play bad enough to give them a sense that they might win this game. Then they might try for a series.
With this team is entirely possible.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying these things because like the Saints are in a much better position. I'm just saying these things that these are the realistic issues. Jim, I just saw him because I've been playing Lions games behind me, but Jim Schwartz was just on here a minute ago. He's a former head coach. He's
Hmm.
once again a possibility as a head coach for a team, but the Saints fans don't want another defensive coordinator as head coach.
Right.
So I mean, you've got more coordinators available, but that field is getting narrower and narrower of
Yep.
what offensive coordinators you're going to choose from. I
Yep.
mean,
And what are you going to do? Are you going to bring in a recycled guy that's been an offensive mind, a Frank Reich? How's that going to
mhm,
go? Josh
right.
McDaniels? How's that going to go?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. I know everybody's like, "Oh, Eric Bieniemy, Eric Bieniemy." The Saints interviewed Eric Bieniemy. They're not going to go back to Eric Bieniemy. They've never done that in the history of the franchise of going through coaches and go, you know what? We picked the wrong guy. Hey, we'd like for you to come back. We want to talk to you again.
Hmm.
I think we made the wrong guy. I mean, he's not that desperate for a job. He might get the Commanders head coaching job
My,
because they fired almost everybody else.
yeah.
That might be his job. He'll just take over. Poor Jack Del Rio. Former Saint linebacker, former Saint position coach. You trade his two best pass rushers, and then you get pissed off because his defense can't stop anybody. I mean, and he gets fired. But that's new ownership bringing in
Mhm.
new coaches. They're going to want their people in. So but the biggest problem I see on this team is there's a lot of, like you alluded to, a lot of age on the team. Guys who just can't play like that anymore. And you don't have good players coming up behind them. The guys
Mhm.
that you tried to bring in to replace these aging players have turned out to be busts. Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport not panning out, so don't have anybody behind Cam Jordan. Um, you're not getting the good safeties anymore. You've got a couple, but you don't really. I mean, Marcus Williams, you let him walk rather than paying him. Um, so you have an aging safety, a free safety.
Mhm.
I think I like the safety they drafted this year, but we'll see if he's ready to step in full time in the role. Um, what positives do you see out of this team right now? I know, there are a few, but what things have been positives for you that you have liked?
I'll tell you, you can't say enough good things about Paulson Adebo. I think Paulson is the MVP, not just defensively, but overall MVP of this team this year. I think he's having a fantastic season. So good, as a matter of fact, that is kind of overshadowing that Alontae Taylor is having a pretty darn good year too. Alontae started off a little bit rocky in the slot. He's been playing very, very well there lately. And I could see that being a home for Alontae in the near future. I still love him as an outside cornerback. But from the slot, you could do so many more things with him. You could play him against the run. You can bring him on those slot blitzes. You can mix and match him in coverage, in different coverage roles. So those two guys I love. Outside of that, I still have high hopes for a bright future for Brian Bresee. He's hit a little bit of a rookie wall. You don't see him getting the penetration and the disruption that he did early in the year, but the kid still has a motor that just doesn't quit. So as much as we talk about, they missed on Marcus Davenport, they missed on Peyton Turner. The jury's still out on Isaiah Foskey. You said this in your Good, Bad, and Ugly the other day too. Jury's still out on Isaiah Foskey, but he certainly hasn't done anything so far. It looks like you did hit on one in Brian Bresee on the interior, at least. Offensively, Olave and you and I have both been critical of Chris this year. He's still he's still got the makings of a terrific wide receiver. Same with Rashid Shaheed. So I think you can hang your hat on them. If if neither of those guys come to your management this offseason and say, I want out, I don't like the direction this franchise is headed, I want out, you need to trade me. So if that doesn't happen, you have a couple of offensive core players that you could build around. If you find the right offensive guy, if you find the right offensive system. Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara's having a good year, not great year. And Taysom Hill. Again, what can you say about Taysom Hill? I'd love to have 45 or 50 Taysom Hills on my team because there's just no quit in those guys. The world could be falling apart around him. Taysom's still going to buckle up that chin strap and come at you 100 miles an hour. And you just love that attitude. So, like you said, there's not a lot of positives, but you can hang your hat on a few individual players.
And I agree with everything. I think Shaheed is better than Harding. Because he is the complete package. I still trying to figure out how he went undrafted.
Right.
Honestly, because he is a complete package as far as a receiver. I mean, and a kick returner. Hardy, I can see why he didn't get drafted. He's small, but Shaheed really shows that he can play the position, and he makes plays. He's an explosive wide receiver. Chris Olave, I have him as a number 2 receiver right now. He's not a number 1 receiver because he doesn't make those contested catches. You still need to find that number 1 receiver, and Michael Thomas is still it as your number 1 receiver. I kind of fault Carr for going through this. Okay, this series I'm going to Michael Thomas all the time. This series I'm going to Chris Olave a lot. This series I'm going to go to Rashid Shaheed. He doesn't mix it up enough.
It's absurd, isn't it?
I don't think Carmichael. Yeah, it's weird. He gets locked into guys, and I don't know why. And Carmichael doesn't do these guys favors with some of the route concepts that he calls. So it makes it even harder on Carr. Carr is a better quarterback than what we're seeing. That doesn't make him an elite quarterback. Far from it. But he's a better quarterback than what we're seeing. Because you saw that in the very beginning of the season. You saw some of that in the preseason and training camp when he wasn't getting the shit beat out of him every other play. Because he took 12 sacks in 3 games. That's a sack a quarter. That's going to affect you. It doesn't excuse him. And that's the problem I have right now with Saints social media. You can't say anything positive about anybody without them going, "Oh, you're a Carr defender." I'm not a Carr defender, but there are things that he does well or things that he's done well in the past that he could still do well again if he had a quarterback. If he had an offensive coordinator and a coach that were kind of locked in on him. That was the thing that we said about him and John Gruden. John Gruden got that out of him. Now, I'm not saying that John Gruden should be our next head coach, but I'm saying that John Gruden at least got something out of Carr, got him to play better, worked with him in a way, get him to play better. Right now, he plays like a guy who's almost got PTSD. He's like a guy who's taken too many hits to the head, and it affects him. They call him. Everybody makes fun of the fact that he checked down so much. I check down a lot too if I don't trust the guys in front of me to block. And I'm gonna get the shit beat out of me again. Somebody's gonna high-low me again. You better believe I'm getting this ball out of my hands. But then he comes out in the beginning of this Atlanta game, and boom, he's hitting a 30-yard pass to Olave. Boom, he's hitting the next pass, another deep pass. It's just, Jameis, that's a whole nother thing. I mean,
Jameis,
like I tell everybody, Jameis is as good if you got a fire drill offense. You're playing a 4-minute offense and a 2-minute offense. You need to get a score really quick, and you're going to let him make one read and throw the balls deep. He's good for that. You try running that for 4 quarters, it ain't working. And he's going to get sacked, and he's going to make bad decisions. And, I mean, that pass to A.T. Perry, I still shake my head at. Yeah. Incredible athleticism. But like I said, you look at that still shot of that defensive back for the Vikings standing over the S going, this crazy MFer is going to try and throw this pass across the field to that side of the end zone. He's on the other freaking hash mark. And, yeah, he made the pass. He made it. But A.T. Perry had to fight to keep that ball from getting it taken away. Or his 2 interception performance could have been a 4 interception performance. Somebody else, another one, a guy dropped the interception. So that's what you get with him. That you're always going to get that. But yeah, I hear you, Anna. I could slap some of the people too, but I understand why they want it. Carr has thrown 0 touchdown passes in 2 weeks now, 1 pick six. I get it, but that's the theme of this show. It's not just him. It is a lot of things going wrong. Bob, we hardly talked about the Detroit Lions. It's a funny week. Detroit got beat by the Packers, and the Packers are a terrible team. They got 20 points in the first quarter, and they got 7 points the rest of the game. Or 9 points, I think, the rest of the game. I don't even know what the final score was. And the Packers are another team that's probably looking at another quarterback because Jordan Love ain't it. I don't think they're going to fire LaFleur, but they're not happy with this quarterback.
Yeah.
How would you describe the Lions' offensive attack versus the Saints?
Fast, free, and aggressive. The Detroit Lions offense is everything that the New Orleans Saints fans want the New Orleans Saints offense to be. They're fast, they're decisive, they're aggressive, they attack you from every angle, and they keep attacking from the opening gun until that final whistle of the day. I've watched a lot of Detroit Lions football this year. They're a fun team to watch. And I keep telling people this, do they have the talent of a Super Bowl contender? Yeah, I think they do. But they're a young team that's still learning how to win. That's why don't just look at this past Thursday's Green Bay game. Look at the previous week when, frankly, they should have lost to the Chicago Bears. They've turned the ball over a lot in recent weeks. And once you get into late November, early December, and from here on out, every mistake gets magnified because you are in a playoff race, and I think that's what we're seeing with Detroit right now. They're still learning how to win. They're still learning how to play in these situations, and I think they've turned the ball over 6 or 7 times in the last 2 ball games. They came back against Chicago and couldn't quite pull the same kind of comeback against Green Bay. But there's no panic in Detroit. Dan Campbell is still going to have that offense. Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, still going to have that offense going full throttle. They're an offensive line that beats the hell out of you in the trenches. They can beat you with an inside run. They can beat you with an edge run. They have, they have a nice 1-2 backfield punch of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. That remind you a lot of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara back in 2017, 2018. And Dan Campbell makes no secret. That's why he drafted Jahmyr Gibbs with that kind of possibility in mind. Amon-Ra St. Brown. A terrific wideout. Doesn't get nearly enough credit for how good he is. And, I hate the University of Iowa. I hate everything about them. I love you, Quinn Early, but I hate everything about Iowa. Their offense is literally drawn up by a caveman. But University of Iowa will produce NFL tight ends, and they got another one in Sam Laporta. He is a guy in New Orleans has not been able to cover tight ends in recent weeks. He's a guy that could have a big game. I don't see any way that Detroit doesn't put up 30 or 35 points on the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. I really don't. This offense is that good.
Well, Laporta was somebody I wanted the Saints to draft too.
Mm-hmm.
I had his name circled from the first day I got my draft guide because I wanted that guy. And sorry, Bob, I love the University of Iowa's uniforms because the old Steelers uniforms.
That they are.
Love that. And we're talking about the Lions. Chuck Long was a quarterback I liked way back when from the University of Iowa. He played for the Lions. The Saints beat the crap out of that poor guy, so that was in his time. But so I knew about the Hawkeyes a little bit. But yeah, the Lions have the offensive line I wish the Saints had. Sewell is probably not only is he an All-Pro, but if he keeps playing the way he's playing, that's a future Hall of Famer. He is that good. I think that's what they thought they were getting with Penning. But Percy Sewell is probably one of the best offensive linemen out there. That helps that running game tremendously. Honestly, the biggest weakness on offense for the Lions is quarterback.
Yeah.
Jared Goff has these brain farts, for lack of a better term, where it's like when you're playing Madden and you hit the X instead of hit the triangle and you throw a triple cover, you're like, what the hell was I doing?
Yeah. Or the pass all of a sudden goes that way.
Yeah. That's Jared Goff. And you saw that against Green Bay. You saw that against Chicago. He is the guy turning the ball over. And sometimes the receivers, turn the ball over when they get in that open field like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, to me, that's something the Saints have to hope for, is to win the turnover battle and take advantage of these turnovers. Because I think we saw it last week, and Atlanta's offensive line is not nearly as good as Detroit's, but Atlanta was able to take it to the Saints' defensive front by running the football. I don't know where that's going to be. And I know a lot of people are freaking out because Jason Pierre-Paul went back home to Florida, and the Saints didn't keep him, but he was only in for a handful of plays.
Mm-hmm.
Really didn't do very much. You're not losing. You're losing an aging player who was sitting on his couch 2 weeks ago. But people are like, oh, you see, he couldn't wait to get out. He saw this defense. It's like, I'm out. No.
And these were the same people that were mad that they signed Jason Pierre-Paul in the first place, that they signed another aging player, and those same people that were blasting the signing of Pierre-Paul, 24 hours later, those same exact people, when they saw the Philadelphia Eagles release Derek Barnett, the Saints need to go out and sign Derek Barnett. Oh my God. I mean, it's because of people like that I cannot wait for this season to be over. Win, lose, or draw. Saints could run the table and win the Super Bowl. I cannot wait for this season to be over. I just can't. I've reached that point of my year.
Yeah, I've probably been way too active on Twitter because of this, because I just can't take it's raining today. It's Dennis Allen's fault. It's Derek Carr's fault. We were promised sunny weather today. It's raining. It's because we have Derek Carr as our quarterback. I mean, it's gotten to that level, and it's really, really ridiculous, because I get negativity sells. I get that people like to be negative about stuff, but it's not. I watched the Jets throw a pick six on a Hail Mary. We haven't seen that kind of foolishness. We're not seeing the butt fumble. We're not seeing, the kind of foolishness that you're seeing in other teams. It's bad. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of bad football out there.
There is.
Relax. you've got we haven't gotten. Oh, Detroit could do it, but we haven't gotten shut out 40-0 like the Giants did against the Dallas Cowboys. You know, we're not getting those kind of lopsided scores where you're like, are we even on the field? Um, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I don't think it'll happen against Detroit because I don't think the Saints are going to let it get to that point. I think they'll do enough they may be all field goals, but they'll do enough to give you hope that they could possibly come back and win this game. That's what they do. Um, Detroit's defense against the Saints offense. Aiden Hutchinson's a big time pass rusher. So you got to deal with that. Against the run, they are a little susceptible. Our former linebacker Anzalone is nicked up. I don't think
Yeah.
he even played last week. He's one of their leading tacklers
Yeah.
on the team. If the Saints get to the second level, can they do some damage against this defense?
Yeah, they absolutely can. Detroit has some nice defensive numbers against the run. They rank fifth, but you need to look a little bit closer. A lot of teams have had to abandon the run against the Detroit Lions because they've either gotten into a shootout or they have to come from behind because Detroit rolled up so many points and yards against them early on. If the Saints can avoid that hole, and they can establish some sort of offensive balance, then yeah, I think Kamara as a receiver and a runner, could create some serious damage on the second level of the Lions defense. Whoever, if you have Olave or Shaheed available, and I love the way they used Lynn Bowden last week. By the way, he's another guy. The shifty receivers have been able to create some damage in the Detroit secondary. So don't necessarily get fixated on the fact that the Lions defense ranks fifth against the run. Again, a lot of teams have had to abandon the run early on. So if the Saints could weather that early storm that Detroit likes to come at you, they like to come out fast and aggressive. If the Saints could stay in the game early and maintain balance, then yeah, I think Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara can create some damage on the second level. And you could do so by getting the ball out of Derek Carr's hands quick, because like you said, you pointed out, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, their defensive tackle is having a heck of a year too. He's collapsing a lot of pockets. So I don't see the Saints being able to protect Derek Carr for any more than a second and a half or 2 seconds. But if you get some rhythm going, use the receivers you have with proper spacing, then you could spread the Lions out, in the open field, and at that point you have better athletes than what they do, man for man across the board. So yeah, you can make some plays against Detroit.
Yeah, and it's funny. Detroit, in many ways, has been a team. First off, the Saints, I don't think have a winning record against Detroit, believe it or not. But the Saints playing Detroit there's been a lot of historical moments because the Saints played Detroit. I started the highlights behind me with the Tom Dempsey field goal, and obviously that was there's an interim coach in J.D. Roberts. He came aboard 3 days before that game. They fired Tom Fears, the original head coach, just before the Lions game. And, of course, we kicked the game-winning field goal, with no time left, 63-yarder. In 1989, the Saints played the Lions. And that was the infamous meltdown on offense and defense that pretty much cost the Saints a playoff spot in 89. And Moore made the decision to bench Bobby Hebert and start John Fourcade the last 3 games of the 89 season. 2000, that was the first game of the Haslett era. The Saints lost that game, but that was really the only bad game they played until the final game against the Rams. But you kind of started to see the new identity that Mike McCarthy and Jim Haslett were doing. And
Mhm.
of course, 2017, the famous um, what you call it, Cam Jordan with the SWAT. Cam Jordan getting batting down so many balls, including batting one for his only touchdown he's ever scored in his career, in that wild game in the Dome back in 2017. So there's been a lot of important games in Saints Lions history. It's not just a regular foe.
Mhm.
So this could be, if the Saints lose this game, and I expect them to, but if they lose this game, this could be the game that the Saints and Loomis and all look at this and go, you know what? This is not the direction we want to go in, and make the decision. Not fire him there, but this is the game that could seal Dennis Allen's fate. Um, Despite what happens over the next 4 games after, there's 5 games afterwards. And I know that 3 of them are divisional games, but this is the game that they could probably look at and go, you know what? This is it. This team has gotten its doors blown off. It doesn't look like it's really prepared. We are not going in the right direction. We're going to have to make a change, especially, and this is what's important, especially if defensively this team is not playing well. And I don't think this team is going to play well defensively. I think they will get manhandled. I think this is the game where the Lions do rush for over 200 yards. And, I hate when people pull for the Saints to lose. I never pull for the Saints to
Right.
lose. But if you see the defense lose this game and the defense play that badly, this could be the game where Loomis makes that decision. We're going to start looking elsewhere, and we're going to start preparing to look elsewhere after the season's over with. I mean, do you think it could turn out that way?
Yeah, and I think the last statement that you made about the defense, that could be what the final nail in the coffin is. As far as the game that should have made up the front office's mind, when you get manhandled by a divisional rival, that's inferior to you, we believe inferior to you in talent, like last week. That should have been, and that for other franchises, that is usually the final nail. But Loomis, ownership, whomever, the powers that be in New Orleans, they like to hang their hat on the fact that Dennis Allen is such a good defensive mind, and he is. And that this team is that we want to win on the defensive side of the ball and just make a few plays on the offensive side, and we aren't making those plays, and that's why we're falling short. In other words, it feels like they use the offense in general, as a scapegoat. But defensively, we're still in a lot of these games. You go up against a Detroit Lions team now that a lot of people are at least talking about as potential Super Bowl contenders because of their offense, and you get your doors blown off at home because your defense just cannot keep up with them. I think that I agree with you. I think that that's what could be what sends Mrs. Benson and Mickey Loomis into a closed door meeting and say, okay, we've seen enough, and this is the direct. Let's start to set the framework for the moves that we're going to make this off season. I see that being this game, because I like to go into different Saints games, even when they're undermanned or not playing well, and if this happens, I could see the Saints winning it, or the Saints can keep it close if this happens. If I had to make my final score prediction right now, and I'm don't quote me to this, guys, because I still have a couple days to talk myself out of it. If I had to pick right now, I'd pick the Lions winning this game 31-6, somewhere in that range. I cannot see this defense being able to keep up with the Detroit offense.
Well, yeah, and the offense being so undermanned right now, because you're probably not going to have Shaheed. In fact, I'm 99% sure you're not going to have Shaheed. Olave's, if maybe questionable. question. So, I can see the offense, and the offense was struggling even when they were all healthy. I can
Right.
see the argument that, okay, that's the offense. They just can't keep up. But if the Lions can just line up man to man and just totally dominate that Saints defensive line and just gash them repeatedly, and the Saints are just standing there with their hands on their hips, there's nothing the coaches can do. They're just getting physically whipped, you know, and they're making plays. Guys are running wide open, and everything looks in disarray. Yeah, because you wanted this coaching staff. You got these defensive coaches. Oh, Bob disappeared for a second. You wanted this coaching staff. You got these defensive coaches, and this is what you got. And you don't have the
Mhm.
injury excuse. Yeah, you don't have Lattimore, but you got everybody else. You've got everybody else out there playing. You need to show something.
Yep.
Last thing before we wrap up. The Saints had kicker tryouts today. That was just blowing people's minds because Group A actually had a good game
Right.
yesterday or Sunday. Why did they have kickers tryouts today?
It's very simple, folks. And again, I don't have the problem with the people that tune into Under the Dome or Bayou Blitz because you guys can read. So pass this along to the assholes that can't or don't. It's very simple. I mentioned it twice in the article, and the first time was in the very first paragraph. They had kicker tryouts, and ultimately they did add a kicker, Siebert, to the practice squad. They had kicker tryouts not to replace Blake Grupe. Blake Grupe was dealing with a groin injury going into the Atlanta game. They brought in kickers to try out in case Grupe's groin injury worsens or re-aggravates before Sunday's game. That simple. And they ended up signing, somebody, Austin Siebert, for the practice squad. That's why, guys. But instead, I'm getting asshole comments like, oh, they're looking to replace the kicker, but not the quarterback or the offensive coordinator or the head coach or the tackle. Read the effing article, please.
I know. I got text messages from people like, why are they bringing the kicker now when they should have brought him in a few weeks ago when he was missing? And I'm going, he's got a groin injury. Oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, that's why they did it. Now I'm surprised they didn't bring in more receivers.
Right.
I mean, I know there's nobody out there. I know that. Maybe you can go to the receiver graveyard and maybe dig somebody up.
Alan,
Like a
is
Des Bryant,
Traquan,
not Des
please,
Bryant, but
please tell me, Alan, that Traquan Smith
he's
is on the Broncos
he's
active roster.
no, he's on the practice squad.
Oh, F. Okay. I
Yeah,
thought
he's
about
on the
that before we came on the show.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I don't think we've hit rock bottom yet, but I don't even know. I don't even know who they could go to right now. I think if they went and got somebody, it's going to be somebody who is not even Chase Claypool, but somebody who is a oldie, forgotten receiver that played 4 years ago, and maybe you think you can get some mileage out of him still. I don't know. There's not Antonio Brown. No, not Antonio Brown. But anyway, yeah, so that's what's going on with these things, and it is because of injury. I'm a little concerned because Cam Jordan went to the injury tent,
Yes.
and we will get the first injury report tomorrow and see
Yes.
if he practices. I expect him to practice and play,
Mm-hmm.
limited practice and play on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's not the player he was, but I would be Cam Jordan prides like Demario Davis. Cam Jordan prides himself on not missing games.
Yes.
So I would be shocked if he misses the game. What you have going on for the Bayou Blitz tomorrow? Or are you
The
playing?
you
Or
know
you
the,
do it
the
on Thursday?
I think we're doing it tomorrow. So far, so good. My neck is holding up. I can at least sit up straight. And I think Brendan, I think Brendan is going to be at home and not on the road. So yeah, we're shooting for tomorrow. The main thing, the main news of the day is going to be, as you just said, the injury report. We'll get a better idea about Cam Jordan, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Remember that Eric McCoy got nicked up too. So we're watching that one as well. As well as a couple of other injuries. And then we're going to delve into the Detroit Lions a little bit more. My first game preview article of the week is going to release in the morning as well. So we'll talk about that. What can the Saints do offensively? Against Detroit. What are the Saints going to maybe be able to do defensively to at least slow the Lions down and keep them into the game? So we'll talk about some of that stuff as well.
You know, I didn't even mention a former Lions player who did play for the Saints defensive tackle, the one with the heart condition. You remember him? He was a former
Nick Fairley,
draft pick from Nick Fairley. I was thinking about that when we were looking at 2011, him playing on the 2011 Lions team.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Fairley, former first round out of Auburn, and the Saints found the heart condition after they had paid him. And it's able to get the money back, which was funny, but they were able to get that money back. But, there's another case of you sign a guy, give him a shot. He turns out to be pretty damn good, and you get the worst luck. There's Cam Jordan's touchdown right there. This is the 2017 game. It's another Lions connection. So there's a lot of Lions Saints connections. Last one was here we go. They kicked me off right before. Okay, last one I was going to say before I let you get out of here. You remember the Saints played the Lions when the Lions went 0-16, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that game? I think that was 2008. I can't tell you how many people were telling me before that game, the Lions are going to win that game against the Saints because that's what the Saints do.
Right.
Tampa Bay in 1977, the Cleveland Browns in 1999. So in 2008, the 0 for Lions are going to get their one win against the Saints. Well, of course, the Saints killed them. I'm like, no more. Somebody else lose to the Lions, not me. So there's another historical game I didn't mention. Bob, thank you so much for sticking with me all this time. I know it was a lot of me talking. I know your neck is still bothering you, but I appreciate you sticking out this extra time. Folks, turn in the Bayou Blitz. Check Wednesday. Bob will give you an update, let you know if it's going to be on Wednesday, and read his articles before commenting.
Yes, please.
And of course, you have your pregame show that y'all going to do on Sunday, right?
Yes, we moved it from PSF, to we're just doing a straight Bayou Blitz now. So it is going to be available, wherever I publish through Facebook groups. So check out the Under the Dome group, check out Bayou Blitz group, and then of course my personal pages as well. All those links will be available for our Bayou Blitz pregame show, probably going at 10:30 a.m. on Central Time.
Okay. All right. In the meantime, thank you guys. Try and stay positive. Even if you think the Saints are going to fire everybody, just be positive. There's enough negativity in the world. Being negative isn't going to make this season end any faster. And the coaches aren't getting fired any faster either. So stay positive. Find something to enjoy in the game. It's just a game. It's just a season. And we'll see what happens next time. In the meantime, thank you guys for sticking with us. We'll see you next time Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.